Welcome back to Composition and its Allies. My name is Barney. I'm a classical composer, and this is a channel for composers as well as performers that are interested in composition. Fugue for composers is for anyone who wants to compose their first fugue, or for anyone who is struggling to finish their first fugue. When it comes to fugue, I think there are two central blocks for composers. First and foremost, there are certain technical skills that you honestly need. Many times composers have enough of a level when it comes to counterpoint, but they struggle when it comes to harmony. You gotta be good at modulations, you gotta be able to think across different sections, but let's assume that's not an issue for you or that you're working on it, but you still want to get to fugue. Another problem could be mental blocks. So there's a lot of propaganda out there, what you can and can't do in a fugue, always comparing yourself to Bach, even though your other compositions are in a completely different language and style from Bach. So it's ludicrous to make these comparisons, but this is kind of propagated by fellow composers, by teachers, and if you're not able to escape this dynamic, you may find that you never compose your fugue. In today's video, I want to offer you some strategies and ways of thinking so that you can actually finish your first fugue. Let's begin. So, I know for my after the climax, I'm going to go to the subdominant, which is B minor, okay? Probably will have to pass in between a key from C sharp minor to get to B minor, but I know I definitely want to get to B minor. So that's a slowed down version of my fugue subject, okay? The official version is twice as fast. But strongly overcome with female charm. And then later in the fugue and after the climax, I want something really dramatic and expansive, so I have these wider intervals. But strongly overcome. So the first thing you have to be careful of is ideological purity. So what's ideological purity? Oh, but you have to do it exactly. For example, an exact, slowing down of this at double speed would be but strongly overcome with female charm. I don't like it, okay? It's too slow, it doesn't capture my attention. Ça s'épuise, we say in French. It's just exhausting, okay? So the first thing is when you're looking for material, you have to think like a composer. You cannot be thinking as an ideological purist. Yes, in fugue school, there's all this emphasis on this exact, it doesn't work, okay? So I have this slowed down version of my subject that I really like. Now, another idea I have in this page is some parallel motion. But strongly overcome. Oh my god, you can't have parallel motion. Nonsense, okay? So in this fugue, I'm hearing in this after the climax, I'm hearing this parallel motion with the children's chorus. And if anything, I think the children are going to become one voice. So it goes from a 5-part fugue to a 4-part fugue here. I'm not totally sure, but this is something that I'm experimenting with. Okay, now I also have just the main melody is sketched out, but I don't have, the exact rhythms. But strongly overcome with female charm. Okay, and I have some of the harmony filled out. Female charm, with female charm, with female charm. All right, so I have these ideas, but now I have to start getting to commitment. So the big battle now is I want to get continuous music from start to finish, from the climax all the way to the end of the piece. So remember in the Fugue is War video, I talked about the importance of thinking of fugue as a war, and to win the war, you need to win the critical battles. So for me, a critical battle is getting continuous music. So what does that mean? It means every measure has music. So whatever the subject is, that's probably going to be there. But any important entrances, chants that come in, probably I need to get the bass as well, because once I have continuous music from start to finish, I can fill it in, but then I can start working on the proportions, because one of the things that I'm already sensing with this fugue is just way too long. Each section, as I'll show you, sounds good on its own, but when I fit them all together, I can already tell I'm going to have to slim down, slim down, slim down. But in order to be able to do that, I have to have a really good idea of how this fugue moves in time. So I'm trying to get music for every measure. All right, so we did the preparatory work. I have a general sketch of what's going on after the climax. One thing I forgot to mention is the key is so critical, but that was already addressed in the preparatory work, which we talked about in the climax of the fugue video. So now what I want to do is I want to get specific note values, okay? It's not enough just to have, the melisma and the sketch and all that. That's great. Just for getting, pour comprendre le chemin, we say in French, to understand kind of the route that you'll be taking. But I need something specific because I need to be able to start working the proportions of the fugue. I'm probably a couple of weeks away from that, but I cannot do that, which is the hardest part of fugue, until I have continuous music. So, I have the main melody. But strongly overcome with female charm. All right, and of course I have the harmony, which I already showed you, which is going to be guiding, but now I got to start realizing the harmony. So my general strategy, or just the way I operate, is to get the outer voices. This really comes from harmony. This is why I say, you really need a strong bass in harmony to be independent when it comes to fugue. And in harmony, you're doing all in French style. You constant exercises above and below, above and below. So by the time you get to fugue, it's just so natural to think in this manner. So the first thing I'm looking for is some kind of pedal. I know I definitely want a pedal that was already somewhat present in harmony. And I'm listening for the bass, okay, or the baritone too. And what I want to listen for is where do they enter. I don't need to hear the other stuff they're doing. Obviously, there's some kind of counterpoint or something else, but I want to hear the significant entrances. So I have to play and I have to listen and I have to think like a composer. And I really don't know what else to tell you besides you have to get your feet wet. You have to try things. You have to test it out. This is one of the reasons why I don't know if you can really be taught the way like harmony can be taught. Harmony, there's exercises, which I have in a separate series on this channel. It can be taught. Fugue, I don't know, because I'm just showing you how I'm thinking. Let me just try it again. But slowly overcome. Okay, no, I need the entrance prior. I don't like an entrance. If I already have a pedal there, that's not going to be a problem. But I don't want to enter a pedal on a dissonance like that. Though you're free to do what you want, but you gotta listen, okay? So again, it's really just about listening. You have an idea already from the harmony that we saw in the first part on the sketch, but now you have to actually realize it. You have to get exact note values. It can't be wishy-washy, especially with the outer voices, because we need to move as quickly as possible to working on the proportions. And to get the proportions, I need to have the sections figured out. Of course, ideally, the sections are the perfect length to begin with, but I just don't, I'm not at that level yet. I don't know if it's ever possible to just do it like that. Another thing I wanted to mention is this kind of strategy or method of thinking that I'm going to be showing you. I kind of consider it tug and pull. So one voice leads, the other voice leads, and you kind of just, the point is you need to get continuous music. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to listen for an entrance of the subject. So part of the dance and the joy of fugue is having a subject which the listener gets accustomed to and they hopefully enjoy it, but then depriving of it, right? It's you have to think about you're teasing someone, right? Like, oh, look at this wonderful treasure. Oh, and they get addicted or attached, and then you hide it. okay, and you poke it out and you show it differently every time, so it's like it's always fresh and new. That is the beauty of the fugue, so it makes it really difficult, but that's the joy and that's what you're going to love about the fugue. So for that reason, I don't have the subject in this moment, but I need to think about a suitable moment to bring it in. Now, one other thing I want to emphasize, I think I mentioned a couple of times, but I got to keep emphasizing it, is you got to have an idea of the harmony, okay? So just sketching like what I'm doing, if I don't already have a draft with some kind of reference point, I think you get lost very quickly, and then you just measure by measure, and it's going to cause a lot of unnecessary stress later on. All right, so I got to listen for an entrance. But strongly overcome with female charm. And the logical place for me would be that structural cadence right there, okay, to bring in a new voice. But I tried a lot of different things and I couldn't find anything. But strongly overcome with female charm. I mean, when I sing it now, maybe it sounds fine, but when I put on paper and really listened, I didn't like the mutation. Another thing to think about is when you have a key change, if your subject is starting in the upbeat, which is very common, of course, I think it's really common, you will be subject to possible mutations, right? Because you're going to have, oftentimes you have a change of harmony, a cross measure. It doesn't have to be, but usually it's going to have be. And certainly here, very stark change of harmony. So that means there's definitely going to be some kind of mutation in the subject. And I couldn't find one I liked. It just, no matter what, I didn't like the interval. It was weak. It didn't really say something. So I was not able to find a good entrance there. Though as I'm speaking, I don't know. Females, but strongly overcome with female charm. I can, as I'm speaking now, I can hear, I see how it could, I see this dancing, something in the background, but I don't quite know it yet, okay? And I don't think it's important just yet because I'm just trying to get continuous music. Like, this music is not going to change. Like, once I get this, this is like the core, okay? Now, maybe it'll get reduced, but the other things will be added on. So I am looking, where can I fit in the subject? And I see this as something really random. It's kind of like throwing paint on a wall. Maybe after your fifth or sixth fugue, or once you really on est habitué, we say in French, okay, you get very accustomed to fugue, things are quicker, you can sense things. Obviously with Bach, by the time he was doing Art of the Fugue, he already knew how to find a subject to do all the crazy stuff. Like you couldn't just be any random subject, okay? So this will of course come with time, but I had to just test things out. Right, and I thought, where can I bring in this subject, okay? Now, another thing to mention is you're going to have to make some kind of adjustments, right? So, with female charm, but strongly overcome. Right, that was my first impulse, but when I listened a little closer to the bass and the tenor, certainly, depends on the speed, but even at the speed, I don't like it. There are other parts of the fugue, even at a similar tempo, I don't mind the dissonance. I understand it, you hear it as some kind of passing motion, but here I don't like it, okay? But what's taking precedence now is the tenor, right? So we had the upper children's chorus was the main melody. Then I listened for the pedal and the baritone or the bass. And then I listened for where can I bring in the subject, okay? Now the harmony is not really going to change, I would say, because I've already sketched it out. It could change, but generally I find once I have a sketch of the harmony, it just gets more clearer of what the harmony is, but I don't radically change it. But I may need to make some adjustments. So here's the adjustment I made. Strongly overcome. Okay, so I had to move the bass note. As opposed to each is up to your own musical taste. You're the composer. You're in charge. Okay, you're the emperor. Okay, you are in charge, but you got to listen for these things. You got to make these little micro adjustments. So when I sing this, but strongly overcome, that is what I want. Okay, so you're gonna compose and you think you're on a path. Okay, okay, great. I found an entrance where the tenor goes in. Now, of course, maybe later I'll change it to a different voice, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be there. But as I listen, I don't. It's not quite there. Okay. Now sometimes we ignore these things because we just want to get to the end, get the whole thing done. That is valid. The ultimately nothing can be ignored. The more you ignore something, the more it needs to be addressed. So I was able to fix it right away. But I bring it to your attention because I think it's one of the things that makes fugue very difficult because you nothing is ever complete, right? I have the children's chorus for a couple measures, and I get the bass. Now I have this tenor entrance, great. But because of the tenor entrance, I have to adjust the baritones. All right. So, but this is really the beauty of fugue, and I highly encourage you to be sensitive about these things and to really hold yourself to the highest standards possible because once the fugue is complete, then you have to think about another battle, which is getting performed. But if you do not put blood and sweat and tears into your composition, I don't know if you'll have the gusto to go through several years or maybe decades in getting a performance. Then I kind of continued the bass line for a little bit. And then I could have gone many places. Overcome, overcome. It's very flexible. That bass line definitely it wants to do some kind of leap, but instead of moving on to the bass, because there's so many possibilities, I found I had to listen for a different voice. So sometimes I found when I'm composing a fugue, if you find a certain voice has a lot of possibilities, you kind of get overwhelmed. And what that means in certain cases is that it's flexible, it's adaptable, which means it's not the determining factor. So you're going to have to listen for another voice. And then I get to that pedal dominant, okay? So here I'm actually thinking more melodically. So a lot of times I'm encouraging in these videos to think harmonically. There's just no way. You have to think harmonically with a fugue. But there are times like when you're just trying to get the overall melody that you're going to be thinking more melodically, which tends to be a little bit easier, okay? With female charm, with female charm, with female charm. Right? So the children's chorus was adaptable. It was holding a note while the tenor was doing its thing. The bass was adjusting, but then it starts to lead again. So obviously at some point I can fill in the bass and all that. But again, my focus is just really horizontally, just getting every single measure has to be filled in with something, okay? Because again, once I have continuous music from start to finish, certainly from the climax all the way to the ending, then the real battle, well, I have to get the exposition and all the other stuff, sequences and all that, but then the big battle is making sure the proportions are right. And that's going to be several months of work, I can already tell. Okay, it's a lot of work to get the proportions right. Because another thing you're going to have to do with fugue is you're going to have to listen up to tempo, right? So we play it slower because we have trouble playing it or we want to get to the details, which is really satisfying. But at a certain point, you have to hear your fugue in real time play out multiple times, and you're going to decide, you're going to have to listen, you're going to discover mistakes, but you're going to keep listening so you get the flow, then you have to stop. It's just a lot of work. So I need to just get this part done as quickly as possible. I hope that you found this video useful. I hope it motivates you to get back to your fugue. Please shut off YouTube and get working on your fugue ASAP. But of course, if you've already composed your fugue for today and you want to take a little bit of break, then you can watch some of the other fugue videos I have on this channel. Have a great day. Also notice we get to the end. Strongly overcome the female child. And then I was successfully able to get to D major.